Upcoming episodes on the Flying Monkey podcast. Country music artist Grant Malloy Smith. 3-time Grammy Award winner Ricky Cage. Actor-musician, the one and only Chris Mulkey. Father's rights advocate Robert Garza. And new episodes of Parent Stories. Go to flyingmonkeypodcast.com and select your favorite social media site to join us. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Rumble. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, Open Darkness and Stop the Abuse. You can find more information at www.hopeanddarkness.info, a common sense solution to parental alienation. Let us help you get your kids back. And www.stoptheabuse.info. It's time for change. Together, we can stop the abuse. You're watching the Flying Monkey Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Flying Monkey Podcast. And today we have a mother who is being alienated from her child and going through what we would probably want to call the shenanigans of family court. Hey, Janelle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's good to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So why don't we start at the beginning when we just kind of tell our story a little bit.
I had come out of a high conflict divorce of a 22-year marriage in December of 2018. So whenever the actual child modification came, you have to think that it's on the tail end of a high conflict divorce. So that automatically in the courts is going to put me in a certain category, because they already think, okay, there's going to be a lot of money. And that was my opinion. In April of 2021, at that time, we were, my ex-husband and I were currently on a parenting plan where I had my daughter pretty much all the time. I mean, I had I had residential, like she lived with me, went to school from my house. She went every other weekend to her father's house, and then she would spend Wednesday evening. We alternated the holidays, just typical with that A-B schedule parenting plan that they give. I'm not sure if they do that there, but we have an A to pick from or a B. And I was an A parent some years and a B parent other years. So we had attempted to do that for a while, but there was always just, he wasn't ever real consistent with coming to get my daughter for those periods of time. He did get her, but it wasn't always a consistent. And I was pretty close with my daughter. She was 12, and we'd really had a really great relationship. I have 2 children by my ex. One was born in 2000 and one was born in 2009. So you could imagine I kind of had a pretty big age gap between them. And my son had already not pretty much since the divorce had not been speaking with his dad. So April 2021, when he came to pick up my daughter for his normal weekend, it happened to be Easter weekend. My son and I were having an argument because he was 21 and he wanted to do 21-year-old things in my house. And I just didn't want that to happen in my house, just what boys do with their girlfriends, and didn't approve of that, especially with my daughter being just 12. So we had a pretty big fight, and at this time he sought refuge with his father. And so when my ex picked her up, that was kind of like they went over there, and that he was angry, and she went over there too, and they made a plan to kind of just stay away from me for 2 weeks and let me cool down, is what they all decided. But then after 2 weeks, my son began to be kind of just not included in things over there. And he started going, okay, it's been 2 weeks. Let's go back to let's go to mom's. And me and him have made up, and he's wondering why his sister can't come over here because it had nothing really to even do with her to begin with. And then, so this kind of blew into this big tumbleweed. So for 4 months, my son had come home after 2 weeks, middle April 2021, my son came home. And my ex kind of played games with me. He would make plans with me and break them. He would text me and, have things that we were going to do. I was going to go get my daughter. And then because I didn't text him back within 30 minutes, he already made other plans and never mind. And the only times I've seen her in this 4-month period from April to July was when he would kind of randomly drop her off for a couple hours. And a lot of times I didn't even know. I mean, she would just knock on the door early in the morning and stay for like 2 hours. But she just really seemed distant and cold and angry at me. And at that time, there was some baiting that I had no idea. But lawyers actually, I mean, I have talked to parents, and in my opinion, that lawyers may persuade parents to record things, maybe say things to get the other parent to react in a negative way, and the child will record it. And I actually have talked to a couple people who actually have hired the opposing counsel, and they were instructed to do that, but didn't feel right about making their child record the other parent in a negative light. So my
Yeah.
daughter would come to my home and say very, very questionable things that would, honestly, as a mother, I mean, I look back and I kind of makes me giggle, because I'm like, wow, that was such a baited question. But at the time, my emotions are really high because they've been kind of playing cat and mouse with me for 4 months about just seeing my daughter, who had been in my care since she was born.
Yeah. One question I have regarding that is, I know with alienating, it's a lot of programming and a lot of preparation and training that the alienating parent does with the child. So if you can recall, I'm not quite sure if it's been a while, but were her statements consistent with her age and the verbiage that she used at that
No,
time?
no,
Okay.
actually, what would trigger me is they were actually statements that my ex had said to me for years, and things that so it would trigger these reactions, because I'm like, what are you saying to me? Again, I look back, and I mean, I don't think that we should be defined in the courts for those moments when we are being pulled and poked, and with intent to get a negative reaction.
Yeah, well,
But
that's kind
that's
of the
kind
trick
of,
they use. They're just trying to
yep,
find any excuse to turn something against you,
yep,
when in fact that, each of us has certain personality traits and certain ways of doing things and certain ways of reacting. And
yeah.
they don't
And to be,
understand that
yeah,
they've put us in a trauma state
yes,
in this situation. And so when you've never dealt with this and this isn't normal behavior, people don't treat people like this or do things like this to people. And so some people just you react just like, this is insane. And
right.
so just naturally reacting to a situation. But yeah, they want to bait you and catch you and record it and see, look at
Mhm.
this. So
Yeah, and your emotions are really high at that moment. This is your child, and for me, I mean, I've gone through, like, death, and I've gone through a lot of different kinds of things that are very sad, but I've never had my child that, I had very much, she, to me, she is a miracle baby. In my opinion, she's a miracle baby. To have her taken like this by someone that I know, probably the only person in this world that despises me is my ex, and that's who has her. So I could, obviously, she's gonna start to act that way and behave the way he does, be mad at me because he's mad at me,
yeah, and
maybe.
that's the other thing that the alienating parents tend to do or always do. They're using the child to hurt you because
Right.
they feel hurt or they're insecure or all their pathological situations and issues. They're using the child against you, and they're doing
Yeah.
is just severely damaging the child.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's really bad. They're hurting you, and they don't to hurt you, but they don't realize that they're hurting the child. They don't even consider that.
No. So I guess, honestly, whenever she didn't come home, I didn't realize what they did in the courts, because I had a lot of hope in the courts. So I thought in July of 2021, I would just go file a family access motion pro se, and I would just be able to walk in, and they'd be like, well, this is ridiculous, considering I actively work with children every day, and that's been my career, my job. The things that were that was said about me, if anyone would talk, if they would just talk to one person, they would know it was outlandish and ridiculous. But they didn't do that. And and there's one other person that does, and then that's all she hears is these two people in both of her ears. And then yeah, I nobody else can, she don't hear anything else except those negative things about us. and
Yeah,
her perception of what has happened change.
yeah. Well, no, it's programming. It's indoctrinating programming. It's training. They're training the child to believe certain things and,
Yeah.
believe things that didn't happen and to say things that didn't happen. And it doesn't take that long. I mean, people have heard the term for all their lives. I think, we imitate our atmospheres, and
Yes.
there's not, it's very true. People can be programmed. Look at all the different things that people believe in.
Right.
And why is that? Because they were forced to believe in it,
Right.
told to believe in it. They were repeatedly pounded with it, and it
Yeah.
becomes true to them.
Right.
So without thinking for themselves and saying, wait a
My,
minute,
my my mom would always say, you are who you're around, and so it's true. If you're around certain behaviors and certain people, that's pretty much all you're around. You do start to tend to react the way they do and say the things they say. And it
yeah,
becomes normal, even when it may not be normal. But that's one
yeah,
of the things they also do is they keep them very, they basically they have to be detached from everybody. The child is detached from everybody, siblings, family, cousins, grandparents,
yeah.
friends,
They're
anybody from their past. I mean, every tie is severed. So the
exactly.
only,
They're
so
being
the
held
only,
hostage. They're basically a hostage,
that
and
is
an
so
and,
true.
and an explanation of why they do that, and like when they come off like they're angry or they're rejecting
Yeah,
you or they're not wanting to look you in the eye or talk to you. They, everybody for attachment, human beings, we seek comfort. We have to be comfortable in a situation in order to be, I guess, comfortable, to reiterate
right,
that. But in order to find the comfort, they have to, abide by the rules that in the situation that they're in. So
right,
when they're being forced to be mean or hateful or rejecting, they're being told to do that, trained to do that. And the consequences can be very severe or just simple taking away of love. Like, I'm not going to give that, they don't give the child the love and attention for an hour. And they're like, wait a
right,
minute, this is not comfortable. I need someone to give me a hug or to say something good about me. And then they abide by what they're forced to do,
right.
and they find that comfort, whether it's real or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they survive in the situation they're in.
Right.
And
And
so
so
they
I had
have to
come
do
out of, I have actually came out of 22 years of slowly of that happening to me, where now that I'm out of the picture, I'm like, whoa. And so I know that to be true because that's what happened to me. I mean, I slowly over 22 years, every tie was severed for me with family, friends, anybody that would question maybe something that was going on at my home that I may have mentioned that wasn't normal. But so I do believe, in my opinion, that that's true. That's what's happening to my child as well. So
oh,
Are you a victim of parental alienation? HopeInDarkness.me introduces a House on Fire Academy, the only online training program to help you rescue your kids. Become certified in the application of science-based court rescue skills. The program includes classes, courts rehearsals, proficiency reviews, inarguable evidence collection, motion development proficiency tests, and certificates. Sign up today and start the journey to getting your kids back.
oh yeah, no, it is. It's happening to what there's, I think, 25
many
million.
children actually.
Well, there's 25 million cases in the US, so you figure there's more than, some people have more than one child. So you're
Exactly.
looking at 50 plus million kids being alienated, and it's basically, and that word too, they're being abused is what it comes
Yeah.
down to. It's child abuse, it's coercive control, it's psychological and emotional abuse.
Yeah. It is.
And sometimes they want to use other terms and then say that doesn't exist, but it does
Right.
exist, and there is proof, and children are suffering, and parents are
Yeah.
suffering, and society's suffering because of that.
I agree. I totally agree with that statement.
Yeah. So
Um,
how long now has she, so you said 21 is when that started, so we're going
right.
on, we're in the
And
fourth year
basically
now,
I was
right?
I was kind of thrown into the, when I say cash for kids, there literally is a playbook that I wish I had known whenever I had filed all this in 2021, but I didn't find this out until March of 2023, of current cases like mine in my local area that had been brought to light, but they were all recused. And so kind of what they do, they have some players where they have a lawyer, the judge, a GAL who's also a lawyer. They do reunification therapy, counseling therapist, and then you get a psychological evaluation. because their accusations are, you're just so mental and so delusional that, you need this. And so then it kind of gets delayed over and over because you're paying all these people and
Yeah,
trying to pay all your bills. And nothing will move forward if you haven't paid what they want. So
exactly.
they
And then
kind of
they
keep
they
you.
gaslight you and tell you you're this and that, and they try to put a label on you,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
is
yeah.
completely impossible because I mean, the way they do things, I mean, it's if you look at the way they if someone was honestly, ethically, and honorably doing their job in that therapy situation,
Right.
they wouldn't be able to say the things that they say. And if you look at some of the functioning of how they get to those results, it's
Right.
just insane. It doesn't like how could you even do this with a 10 questionnaire? You can't, you
And they
can't.
didn't even call one person. They didn't look at one piece of evidence. They looked at nothing. It was almost like they looked away.
It's
People who
intentional.
tried, right, and people who tried to write affidavits and even call people that were needed to hear their statements, they were ignored, or they were told to the judge that they were just stories from these people. And I'm like, these are
Yeah.
actually relatives that know. I don't, they just didn't want to hear that. And I felt that was also very unfair, because I was like, so you only listen to the side that despises me and who's kept my child away. I'm like, this is so obvious.
And they have the stories that
Yes.
they just said you couldn't have or use that
Mhm.
they use. So I've
Exactly.
experienced the same thing, and all the parents that I've talked to and interviewed as well, it's the same thing. The truth is not wanted,
No.
and like you mentioned, you've got the court, you got the lawyers, you got the psychologists, you got
Yep.
the minors counselor or the gals, or whatever it may be in certain areas or
Right. It could
countries.
be, yeah.
And what's
They
it
name them
about?
different
They
things.
get paid. They get paid. Oh yeah, this one gets paid too. This one gets paid. Everyone's getting paid. And in the meantime, they're damaging your child.
Right.
They're complicit in child abuse.
Right.
And that's a fact. And that's, not an angry accusation or anything when I say that. It's just a plain fact.
It is.
The children are suffering and it's
They are.
abusive. And the parents that go through this is abusive. I've said this before in other episodes where you can solve these problems in a day to a week max. I mean, I think a week is ridiculous. I don't see why it couldn't be done in a day. And then any bad actors that can't follow the rules and be properly play by them and do what's right for the
Right.
children, well, obviously they're the problem. So
Right.
then we have to
Exactly.
deal with that. And then then you can, send them to therapy if you want, but maybe
Right.
it'd be behavioral therapy would be better than talk therapy, because
Right.
talk therapy is only as good as the honesty that's coming out of the person that's
Right.
talking. And so
Right.
if they're not telling the truth, how can anyone come to any conclusions?
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
Yeah. And so in the end, they kind of had told my daughter that she needed to be in her own therapy. And so for some reason, every therapist that they would order, she would only go to for a short time. And then for some reason, she would quit. And so she had been going to the reunification counselor with me for a whole year. And just so you know, I actually had the reunification counselor and the psychological evaluator on my side. That's what was so wild about this. They supported my daughter being with me and more time, but they still wouldn't go along with that. So my ex says, I'm going to get my own therapist. And so he
Yep.
takes my daughter to his own therapist that I never signed for at the time, because at that time I still had I was still supposed to be able to sign for her to even talk to somebody. We had to do that for the other therapist. So he took her to somebody that wasn't court ordered. And in the end, that therapist told the GAL that it was in the best interest of my child not to see me. And this is right after we had spent the weekend with doing my son's birthday. He was turning 23, because it was in beginning of 2023. So we had just basically done a whole weekend of really fun things. And I have pictures of that. It was a great time. And next thing I know, I'm getting a message that I have a lesson I need to learn.
Yeah.
And
Well, that
my
was
daughter.
paid by the alienator to write up a
Yep.
specific report. And I've seen that too. The courts, sometimes, when it's obvious what they're doing, it's
Right.
blatant, it's on the record, and then they continue to keep going until they get to the point where, all right, now we got someone who's willing to lie for us and make up a story,
Right.
and we're going to use that one. This is the one we're going to
Yep.
use to destroy you, and it destroy the kid or the
Right.
kids. It's
Yeah,
asinine. It's
it
complete
is.
insanity.
So just like to end with the case part of it, in May, I had a trial that was set in May of 2023. At that time, my current lawyer that I had had for like over 2 years, she let me go because I started asking her about the Cash for Kids thing, and I had been learning about it. And I was like, "Do you know that these people are named in all of this?" And she said, "Yeah, but they were all recused, and that's, it was a big deal, but it's all over." So the next day she basically put in that she withdrew from being my attorney. I tried to hire another one. They kind of would not allow her to speak, talk, or nothing. So I kind of already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So May of 2023, they made a trial for 2024. And so in May of 2024, without an attorney, I went there and they had my daughter waiting down at the opposing counsel's law office to come testify against me. I hadn't seen her for 18 months at this point.
Wow.
I'm not going to make her come and testify against me. I love her so much and she's so beautiful and smart. And I just did not
Yeah.
want to make her do that. And I thought about, I mean, this is that moment where, because I grew up, going to church, that I thought about the two moms that brought the baby to the king. And, he's like, well, we're going to have to split the baby, right? And the real mom's like, no, no. And he knew then that that was the real mother. And at that moment, I was like, I am the real mother and I can't watch her have pain. And so I let go and let the courts do what they were going to do. The judgment was already wrote. It was wrote a week before my trial. It was signed a week before my trial. So even when I showed up at the beginning of May, they already had decided. So I gave
Yeah, I've seen that
all
before.
sole custody. I gave all sole custody, and I gave all legal custody of my minor child, and all the decision and all the growth and everything. I only have access to her school where I could log in and see her grades and if she goes and what she eats. And then I sit there and now I'm just like, I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have known these things prior to spending all the money and all the honestly, the trauma. It would have been so much easier if I would have known beforehand what they were doing. But where do you find that information until you go through it and then start looking for it?
Yeah,
You
it's
you,
always
you think
after
the
the
courts are
fact.
gonna yeah, you think the courts are gonna have your back and they're gonna do what's right and follow the law.
Well, that's what they're established to do. They're supposed to do that. And, we're taught, truth, justice in the American way. And that doesn't exist. And that's the
No,
saddest thing about it. It really doesn't.
right,
I mean, there's probably, I mean, again, there's probably a few places I've heard of, people getting custody, but it's years of fighting. There's parents that have spent millions of dollars just trying to be in their children's life, just to see them half the time or 30% of the time.
right,
And we have 100% natural rights and constitutional rights to be in our children's lives
right,
and to be their parents and to parent them.
right.
And the
And
courts
actually in
go against that.
my state, I had wrote this down. In August of 2023, they passed the new law in the state that I live in, which I mean, I've been to say, but it's a 50-50 state now. So it should automatically go to that unless you can prove that there's some type of something. And see, and I jumped through all those hoops and they proved nothing. And yet still,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
So yeah, but you're in Missouri. Missouri's a 50-50
yeah,
state.
it
Um,
is.
so,
So right
but
now where it stands is she does live about an hour from me and I have access to her school records. And again, I'm kind of like, I really would like other people to know this or like be able to connect with people who've been through this because it's a really hard time and your family doesn't want to hear about it. They're like, it's almost overwhelming. They can't even believe it. When you tell your family, they honestly don't, they're like, there's no way that's true. And I'm like, it
yeah,
is.
it is. And it's funny because they believed what we believed going in. I've got the truth. I've got the proof. Here it
Yes.
is. It's undeniable. Can't argue it. And we go in and it's like, nope, that's all garbage. And they throw it, they hide it, they destroy it. And then they make up this whole narrative and all these false things that are not true and cannot be proven. And then that's
Mhm.
the final decision. They're going with that and you're done. And
I like
it's
to
it's
call it
it's horrible.
twisted truths. Like they twist the truth. Like sometimes I would read a statement, I'm like, well, that's kind of true, but it's like it's been twisted like an old tree, just or just so they twist things, and so then you're trying to you know def, defend yourself against a twisted truth, or yeah, right, their narrative, only their narrative.
Yeah.
um
Well, there's false. I mean, blatant false lies.
oh
These
yes.
false allegations that people have to suffer through. And I mean, had that happened in your case as well? Any false allegations?
Oh my gosh. So I mean, if I could just read this little clip to you. I mean, this was, I mean, I almost actually had to like, I mean, it made me laugh, but it wasn't, I know it was serious, but this was so ridiculous. But it says that basically a year ago, so in 2020, the mother began struggling with her mental health. She was just way too angry, and she was just, she had a mental breakdown. So she pulled our child out of school and began homeschooling her, which again, I did, but it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with, I do have an illness or a health issue that I was concerned about with everything that happened in 2020. And so I have statements, I have messages where the child, the father, everybody agreed to it. They did it for 8 months. They homeschooled for 8 months before he decided, oh. And then on top of that, he claimed that, because I claim my daughter's a miracle because I had a lot of infertility issues and my children are almost 10 years apart. So to me, to carry her to term is a miracle. And he claimed that I was telling everybody he wasn't the father, that I had conceived my daughter by immaculate conception like Mary. I mean, that made me laugh, but then I was like, this is so ridiculous that this is being
That's absurd.
believed
Yeah.
and is on court record.
I mean,
I guess
for
I had
even
to find
someone
a little
to
humor.
say that is just insane. I mean, and then
I know,
for
I
anyone
was
to
like, and you
believe it.
think something's wrong with me?
Yeah, I know. No kidding, huh?
I mean, come on. I've never met anybody that has ever said that or thought that.
Yeah.
So,
No. Nor have I. Wow,
but that's on court
that's
paper.
that's one of the
That's how
wildest
they,
things I've heard.
yeah. So and there's about 13 to 14 other statements that are just as ridiculous that I laughed. I couldn't believe it. I think I was just in such shock that this was really on paper because it was so ridiculous. And so as I try to defend myself against these things, these ridiculous statements, I think it probably looked more ridiculous because I was like, how could, at the time, I'm sure I'm very excited because they're so ridiculous against me.
Well, yeah, it's absurd. I mean, but the problem is there's no burden of proof in the
Right.
family courts. So
Yes.
that's why they can get away with making up the lies that they make up and then letting others lie. And then like we said, the lawyers instigate some parents to make false allegations or to write up some crazy baloney.
Right.
And,
Yes.
and then they go with it. But like, where's the proof? I
Right.
mean, and then we present the proof, you have a video, you have documentation that's dated and it's,
Right.
it's real. And they just overlook it and throw it aside, and they don't. And then again, like when like gals and minors counsel and stuff like that, they're obligated to talk to the other all parties involved, and they don't. And like you
Right. They
said,
do not.
they refuse to talk to people on your side. And
Right.
what's with that? I mean, it's just that's derelict of duty on their part and
It
not
is.
following their honorable ethics that they're supposed to abide by. So
And
it's insane.
in my case, I actually had my ex's family writing affidavits and providing statements on my behalf and
Wow.
the things that had happened because they've all in time been alienated. And so I didn't really know a lot of his family until towards the end of the demise of our marriage, when I started to go, something's not right here. And then I started to build like a relationship with some of them. And I'm realizing that this is a repeated pattern. It's just different people with him. And he's now in the court system, and he's used kind of the court system to, yeah, like it's like a form of abuse
Oh
to the
yeah, no,
child, to me.
yeah. I was just talking to a regional attorney general or district attorney in another country actually, but they were just saying, they were people use the criminal court system and the family court system as a tool to impose pain and hurt on people.
Yeah.
There's innocent people in jail due to
Oh,
false
yes.
allegations, and then the
Yes.
courts try to do that too to people, and it's just it's wrong. It's just so
Yep.
wrong.
So from here, Tommy, what I have to do every day is get up and I do ask God to help me forgive these people that have done wrong to me.
Yeah.
And according to the Bible, it says that judges and lawyers, they're going to be judged a lot differently than I would be. And I wouldn't want to be a judge or a lawyer doing what they're doing, because what they do is they hurt people and they have the power to, and they are doing it. And they're held at a different standard than you and I. And so
Yeah.
every day I'm just going to keep praying that they'll change.
And
And in the
that's the hardest
meantime,
thing to do, but you're right. I mean, it's you can't be like them, and that's the hardest thing, because the anger and the frustration, the
right,
desperation we feel, I mean, there's so much more. It debilitates us to go
yeah,
through this as a parent that has your child stolen from you.
yes,
And it's others have used it as you're grieving for a child that's still alive,
that's
and the pain of that is horrible, and they don't, and all these people are doing is making money, and that's all, and they
right.
don't, I mean, how could you hold these positions? And I don't know how they could sleep at night. I don't
I
know
don't
how you
either.
could not even consider the fact that, you know, this isn't right. So, you're still going to make your money. Stop
Yeah.
being bad. Stop hurting the kids, you
And
know.
these lawyers and judges and stuff, they're parents. And I think to themselves, what type of parent are you to your own children if this is what you do day in and day out? Because I'm like, I just, do they love their children? I love my child so unconditionally.
Oh
She can
yeah.
walk in today. My ex come on the front porch and be like, let's stop this. And let's walk in forgiveness. I mean, if he had pure forgiveness, and I would be like, I mean, there's nothing in the courts, but I think that's where I need to find my peace but I don't think I'll find that with him. I don't know if he'll ever will. So I pray for
Yeah.
that. And I also pray for my own peace in all this situation, because it can be so
Yeah.
overwhelming, where sometimes that's all your mind wants to think about is the injustice that was done,
Yep.
because we don't live in a world where we think that happens. We think that we all follow the laws and that we're all doing the right thing and that everybody will be reprimanded accordingly. Evidence will be looked at, and
Yep.
in reality it's not. And
It's
so
not the case. No, it's not.
yeah,
It's not. And that's the problem. We live in reality. So
yeah,
reality is here. We are actually talking to each other. We're alive. We're breathing. But they create a false reality that you're forced to have to live with. And
yeah,
it's not acceptable. It's not real. It's not reality. It's illegal. I mean, you can go on with tons of terms to describe it, but it's
right.
just wrong. And so, it's hard to deal with it. So, yeah, finding peace is important, but, can there ever be?
We are like, if you think about like, a wild mom or even a bear dad, I mean, we have that natural instinct to just want to and protect our babies, growl and protect them and keep them safe. And we're not able to. Our hands are tied behind our back. I mean, we're like in a cage. And
Yeah,
that's not natural for us as human beings
it's
to
not.
have our
That's our
children
job
that
to
we
do those
love.
things.
Exactly. We're supposed to protect them, and we cannot protect them like the way we should be able to.
Exactly. I know. It's sad.
I didn't mean to
Very
growl. I
sad.
was just like, that's what it makes me feel like. I will tell you that hitting a punching bag, doing like kickboxing is also very therapeutic.
Yeah, physical exercise. Yeah, well, yeah. That being aggressive, exercising aggressively it will get a lot of it out, But that's in the
When you're
day or the
upset
moment
with
too.
it.
I mean, exactly, exactly.
I just wanted to say that I don't feel like that any parent should be denied access based on one moment or based on actions in a moment, because those actions don't define who we are.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing I like to add to this, since I mean, because we're trying to create awareness for people,
Yes.
stay out of family court
Yes.
completely. If you're about to go in, don't do it. Find a mediator and come to an agreement outside of court. They'll
Yeah.
destroy your life. And then for those going through it, there's still ways to do it. Come tell your story. And let's build the change is what we got to do.
I truly believe if like we had like let's say you invited them and they had to come and we all had to like do a day at like Disney World and it was mandated that we go all spend everybody because we have to get along. That's what I mean we do with children. We make them get along and when they're younger you have to get along
Well,
and
yeah,
just
it's
even if they faked it till they made it, we just all got along and let the child just see that we can get along and you know, maybe we would
well,
all laugh.
yeah, it can be done. It's just bad behavior is not constrained, and that's the
Right.
problem. And they allow that to continue, and
Yeah.
that's not natural, and that's not correct. It's not right.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
that's all. I really appreciate the time that you've given me just to share some of my story.
yeah, you're very welcome. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your
Sure.
story. I hope it helps other parents, that are going through this as well, because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
So, if we can help each other, that's what it's
Yeah.
about. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
All
coming
right.
on, and
Thank you.
wish you luck with everything. And then
Thank you.
we'll be in touch so we can get an update
Okay.
too.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching the Flying Monkey podcast. Like, follow, and subscribe to our social media sites on Facebook, X, YouTube, Rumble, TikTok, and Truth Social. You can also go straight to our webpage at www.flyingmonkeypodcast.com.
Winter, spring, summer, or fall, too hot or too cold, give us a call. We're always here to service your needs. We treat you like family at Mountain Breeze. Heating and air conditioning, set your mind at ease with Mountain Breeze. Mountain Breeze, Heating and Air LLC.
Have you been victimized by family court? Are you suffering parental alienation? It's child abuse and it's domestic violence by proxy. Are you stuck drowning in legal and mental health bills? Get off the treadmill, escape the trap. With over 10 years of research, thousands of parent interviews and case studies worldwide, we have developed a system that works to help you get your kids back. Join the movement now. HopeInDarkness.info, Stoptheabuse.info, AlienationAcademy.com, and theflyingmonkeypodcast.com. It's time for change, and it's time to stop the abuse. Go to tinyurl.com/stop-parental-alienation.